What's up, everybody? This is episode 8 of the Legendary Project. As you guys know, I am interviewing people that I respect a lot and that I think will drive value to the people that are listening. So far, we've had a great montage of guests, and there's been a lot shared. There's been a lot of similarities between episodes, and I am leaning more into AI. And the guy that I've got with me today, I'm sure we will touch on this topic quite a bit because we are geeking out together in text messages, and we've been trying to get together to make sure that we reciprocate communication about AI, but we haven't gotten together about it yet in person. So this is gonna be the first time that we're talking about it, and I'll let him introduce himself. He is a fantastic realtor in the Myrtle Beach market and surrounding areas, and it's somebody that you should know. So, Jay.
Thank
Introduce
you,
yourself.
I appreciate it. And I also am excited to be able to riff off each other, with this being our first real in-person conversation about some of this stuff. And again, I know it's not going to be the entire conversation, but it is certainly a piece of what's going on in the world today, and it'll be a piece of our conversation. So I've known you for 7 years, probably since 2018 when I got here.
Yeah.
Just like many people in the Myrtle Beach area, I'm from somewhere else. 2018 came here from Pennsylvania, where I was a career fireman and also had my real estate license there. So
Nice.
It pains me to say this, yet I've had my real estate license for 12 years. And I'm almost 35, so I started young, But yeah, so I've had my license for about 12 years. Like I said, I was a fireman in Pennsylvania, wanted to retire to the Myrtle Beach area, which I could have done because I started everything young. Could have retired at 42.
Oh, wow.
And long story short, there were some financial challenges with the city that I worked for. I kind of saw the writing on the wall and decided to create an exit plan. My exit plan was sell all of your stuff and move to Myrtle Beach without a job. So I did. And
it's usually how my plans go too.
You know what? The way that I seriously, again, I guess it comes from being a fireman, and I know you with your military background, having you put yourself in a situation that you have to get out of, and there's only one way to get out, and it's alive, right? Yeah. So I came down here and was like, well, I'm going to make it work. And it's funny because when I first started, no friends, no family, no sphere of influence, and was basically out of money. And probably within 3 months, I started to pick up traction. Long story short, that was 7 years ago. I cannot believe where my business has grown, not because of me or not the business, but the fact of the relationships that I have with the people like you and people in the community. And, everyone says Myrtle Beach is a small town, and people don't believe it. And it really is. And the fabric of our community are people like you and, the other business owners and the people who, get together and kind of say, hey, things are changing, and how are we going to, kind of do this together?
And honestly, man, the thing that I do love about our area the most is that tighter community. When we have natural disasters, when we have things that happen, this community is, maybe other communities are that way, but we really band together. There's some great people here that when the rubber meets the road, you can rely on them, and they're there for you. And I think that's super cool, because I would dare to bet that that's not that way in a lot of different towns.
I agree. And I think, like you said, most people would probably say that about their own town. Yeah. Yet we get some really weird things. If something is going to happen, it happens in Myrtle Beach. The Chinese spy balloon, right? How did that happen here?
I remember walking out of, dude, I was in Market Common when that happened. I was walking out of 810 Bowling in Market Common. I look up and I see a missile hitting this thing. And I'm like, holy crap, that's wild.
My wife and I went down to the beach. We went to 27th Avenue South.
Yeah.
And so literally right outside of Market Common.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there watching it. And then, like you said, all of a sudden, I actually had a friend who was working at the airport. And he's like, hey, there's jets here. They're fueling up. Something's happening. Yeah. And then, like you said, it was just the next thing you saw was the jet, the missile, and then
I was like, did I just witness that? In the moment, a lot of people were were like, oh, that was really cool. But in the moment for me, I was like, yeah, I never want to see that again.
Yeah, like what
Like,
just
I
happened?
don't want to ever see that again because
Wow.
like, if that becomes a regular occurrence, like this is not going to be fun. So
Yeah, off the
that was
coast.
that was a moment in history, but I don't want to ever see that again.
Right now, I got this light's panicking me up here. Man.
Yeah. So no, man, like that's really cool. All of us are pretty much transplants. My wife is a unicorn. She's from here, but I'm originally from Ohio or from Indiana. I was born in Indiana. We lived in Ohio for a while. So I definitely like saw my dad. I didn't have to reestablish because like I've been here since first grade, but seeing my dad go through that struggle has definitely taught me a lot about like the world doesn't come to an end if you just have to relocate and deal with it, you know? So
Absolutely.
that's really cool that like later in life, I would say that my parents were probably in their late 30s when we did it. So it was probably a pretty similar time frame. But what did you learn through that experience? Like you went from, I know you had your real estate license up there. Did you practice a ton?
It was friends and family, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were up there, you're mainly working in the fire station. Had you been around sales much in your life? Like what's a backstory that was like, I'm going to bet on myself and completely go all in on sales?
That's an awesome question. I have a really weird brain memory. I never made this connection. I never was on the trajectory of like, oh, I want to be a real estate agent, you know, for the rest of my life. I still don't want to be a real estate agent for the rest of my life. But I remember one time I was maybe like 12 years old and the house across the street from us went up for sale. And I remember, and this is weird, and these are my exact thoughts of a 12-year-old Jay Gray. I remember seeing it for sale and going, wow, you know what? A house is probably the only thing I ever could sell because I don't believe in pushing things on people that they don't need. And everyone needs a house, so I guess I could sell that. And it's like for a fleeting moment, I thought like, oh, okay. And now, you know, fast forward 10 years ahead, again, that was the only time I ever thought of it.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I've always been a risk taker, for one. I've always been entrepreneurial in the sense, and maybe I didn't even know I was being entrepreneurial at the time. I thought, you know, I was making really good money as a fireman. We were making about 90 grand a year. They make a lot more up north, but they also tax us a lot more. It's a different story. Anyway.
That's why a lot of people come here.
Exactly. You know, it's going from $90,000 to what's going to happen next, right? And 100% sales and commission based. And I didn't even realize what that meant when I came here. Had no clue. Even probably after, you know, it takes some time, I guess, to understand really where your trajectory is going and then how you kind of fit into that. But also, like, when I moved here, I was like, oh, okay, if I sell, you know, 10 houses, then that pays for this bill. And then it grows into something that you've never thought it would be. And there's other opportunities and just, it's crazy. So I had no idea what I was doing. There was really no sales intention. It was just kind of like, hey, this is the license when I first got it was a way to like have my entrepreneurial fix, you know,
like scratch an itch,
like a creative outlet. In a weird way. And then I was just like, well, I guess I'll just gamble it all on that and move to the beach because I'd rather be, you know, broke and live at the beach than be broke and live up in the cold. So
yeah, that's a great way to look at it. And I know a lot of your story. So like the blessing of getting married came whenever you moved down here. So there's definitely some stuff that's happened since you've been here.
Yeah, man.
But like on the real estate side, when was the turning point for you where you're like, all right, this income's steady. Like I can take a deep breath. Like when did that happen?
Well, it's funny. It might, I may be able to pinpoint when it happened.
Yeah.
And then it happens a lot after that too sometimes, you know, in our business, depending on what's going on.
The cycles of it and all that. Yeah.
It was too late to begin with, right?
Yeah.
That's what everybody says. What was the exact question? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Like, so like when was like that aha moment of like, oh, this is working?
Gotcha.
Like how many years were you in to living here?
Gotcha.
You started practicing heavily here.
Yeah. So it was weird though. my path when I started here was very convoluted. It wasn't like, oh, hey, I'm here, it's 2018, and I'm jumping into sales, and it's this trajectory. It was, when I had gotten here, there were some things going on with the ownership in our brokerage had been turning over, and there was kind of just some rebirth and regrowth at the same time. So it was kind of really crazy. I had been in a position where some people were like, hey, we need some leadership and you look like you might work, so come on over here. So I played a lot of roles in our brokerage to kind of help get us. I mean, it wasn't at all anything about me. I was kind of just a fill-in where I could be. But there was a lot of like up and down. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm selling steadily for these years. It was kind of running through all these different roles. And with that being said, I would say probably the third or fourth year, it was right after COVID actually, because some things had happened. My leadership role had been exhausted. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Back into the sales. Oh, and now COVID just happened. So we didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And I would say by September of 2020, in March 2020, panicked.
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
September 2020, it was like, I know I've had the experience, I've had the basis, and I have the momentum that I'm good to kind of start planning the foundation for building for the future.
Yeah.
And that's when I felt comfortable enough.
Yeah. For me, I mean, honestly, I was 2 years in, and we're W-2 on the mortgage side, and people have heard me tell this story, but year 2, I had a W-2 that said 12 grand on it for the whole year.
Nice.
So I was like, all right, I'm crushing this business. Not,
right.
So no, I always love to hear like what the journey looks like for everybody. Cause some people, it happens right away.
Yeah.
Usually if it happens right away, it's very easy for those people to fall off. Because if it happens right away, a lot of the times, like, they don't know how they did it.
Right.
They have no clue how they had the success. So keeping that long-term success is pretty difficult to kind of string together. But like the people that grind and have had a bumpy journey, I have seen a lot where it's like, well, you knew what the bumpy side was like. You're not on a super bumpy side now. So it's like, all right, I'm comfortable with making sure that I'm staying consistent.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you 100%. And I think a lot of that also comes with self-awareness and awareness of your business, right?
Yeah.
So you have a ton of success, and it's easy to say, not you, I'm saying you as a random person who has success. Hey, you have this awesome success. You have this, this ego and this image. And again, it may not be bad. It all may be very validated. You have that. And then something changes, whether it's a shift in the market or, your circumstances change. And then you're like, oh, wait a second, maybe I'm not that all of the time. I was that during this time period. So I think digging a little bit deeper and going, okay, wait a second, I am able to do that.
Yeah.
How can I replicate it? But how do I do it? How do I adjust how I am to the situation to achieve that same result? And I think that's kind of the key, is to realize like, hey, you know what? If you can do it once, you can do it again, right? So it's kind of like, hey, do you want to make, an extra $100,000 this year? That sounds crazy to some people. And it's not even it's not even about the hustle and the grind. It's about just thinking differently and being like, hey, is it possible? Yes. Okay. How can you do it? Yeah. And then do it,
Yeah. And I think that like, there's a string that I was hearing you kind of start walking down, which is, once you figure out the first time how to make money, it becomes a lot of fun to like manipulate people. I don't mean it that way, but manipulate the system to go, all right, I made money here and I want to make more, and I know how to make money and utilize money. So let me go put some other verticals out there and make even more. So that's what I like about sales, and what I've liked about the real estate industry is it's gotten me to places that I should have never been, that I, in my mind, wasn't capable of being in those rooms. Yeah. And it's taught me a lot through that, of like, a lot of people are worker bee mentality, and then they don't understand, whenever they see somebody that they consider wealthy or rich or whatever, they don't see how that person grinded, but then once you have grinded and made that money, how easy it is to multiply that money.
Right.
So like my vision for part of the podcast is like to have people like you on to where we share some insights of like, hey, once you figure out how to make it, it's very easy to multiply it at that point. So like some of the stuff that we're doing with AI and some of the craziness that's emerging from that, there's a huge multiplication factor. And I know you and I have talked about that. So in your business on the real estate side, now that you're doing a good amount of volume and you're making a good amount of money, what are the things that you're doing to stay consistent with that? And then touch on that mentality and how AI is helping you do that. So like you've got a steady flow now, you've got a sphere of influence, you're doing really well. How do you see cast vision for the next 5 years of how you stay consistent and how AI is going to help you do that?
Perfect. So to address, I think it's a 2-part question. It kind of blends together. So how do I see the next 5 years going? And how does AI, how's that implemented into that? Honestly, to answer the last part first, how does AI implement into the next 5 years? I'm not 100% sure yet, right? Because
it's
literally
getting wild fast.
Every week, just today, I use ChatGPT. That's the model that I use. And I looked and I said, what is this button? It said deep research.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? And I asked it, what is this button for? And then it explains. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's different. That changes how I now prompt it for things. So it's going to be interesting. AI will be a part of every successful business going forward.
Yeah.
And again, it's not just, write me an email. It's the analysis of the data. That's basically how to achieve. If I know my average sales price and I know how much money, and when I say how much money I want to make, it's not about money. It's about how much opportunity can I create.
It's predicting the future essentially based on your statistics.
Exactly. And it's like, well, I have all of this information and I have to process it. What if something else could process it and not mess up and not, click the wrong button on the calculator? So where do I see my business going in the next 5 years? I'm at an interesting point right now. Right now I'm actually hiring somebody else to kind of take on a lot more of my everyday, I don't want to say boring stuff. It's not boring. It's my business was grown through my personality, which is great, but also really, really bad when it comes to scalability because I can't scale myself to, be the same person for 150 people at the same time. I'm use 2023's number as an example because that was our highest. We closed 60 transactions as one person with administrative support. Yeah. And that's doable. And at the same time, how can we streamline things? How do we remove a lot of the repetition and the redundancy and increase dollar per hour? Like that's the whole thing. It's not even just about like, oh, let's do more business. Yeah. It's how does AI, whether it's taking on tasks or analyzing data, whatever it may be, and finding where that can go into our business to automate it. So to answer your question, I intend to grow my business. I don't know what it looks like, to be honest. Yeah. Because I know where I want to be, and it's going to be how do I get there? Yeah. I have friends who are also in the top 1% of real estate agents in the country who are individual agents, and they have 17 administrative support people. Yeah. And they run 6 or 7 different businesses. Yeah. And it's like, well, okay, I might do that. Or do I do, a more traditional buyer's agent, listing agents and supported with AI. So I'm always looking and I'm always testing with stuff. So yeah. I
mean, same for me, man. Like I have a volume number that I'm chasing after for Legendary Mortgage, but from a predictability standpoint with where the business goes over the next 5 years, like it's going to be wild. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be crazy. The kind of stuff that comes out. Where I see a lot of the change in the real estate world and the mortgage world is what everybody's coining an actual assistant, like
Right.
an assistant that carries out functions on the AI side. Because you've got GPT operator, you got some of these things that are coming out that'll like actually control your computer.
Right.
And where I see something like that going, and it's something that I'm beta testing, is like, dude, there's no reason why a realtor can't have an app on their phone that they just talk to. It writes the contract and sends it out.
Yeah.
You know, like that manual data entry, I think, dies in 7 months. I don't think it's around 7 months from now. But with that becomes problems. Because if a real estate agent's just talking to its phone and they're saying, hey, we're going to make an offer on 123 Main Street. These are the blah, blah, blah. And they don't really know that contract. That's where some of the issues I see coming to the business.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm like you, where I get super excited about, like you said, where it's going. Like 7 months from now, don't even, this is how it's going to be. And I know that we can be there, and people, we can, the amount of efficiency that we could bring to any industry, but our industry, any business, is unfathomable. But the problem is the adoptability of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, hey, this is super easy, and here's a way to have it. The most basic, I'm not for this, have it write my email for me.
Yeah.
And it is 10,000 times beyond that. And even people are like, nope, never, I will never do that. We have people who don't change their area codes, or they're using fax machines and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. That's, and I was teaching in 2 classes at CCAR today, one for basic AI and one for advanced. And it's like, just to see how many in that room, it's not a disparagement to anybody in that room, but how many like really didn't know anything about AI. And I'm like, this is a revolution, and it's happening whether you like it or not. Mm-hmm. Like it's going to happen. It's going to be part of our everyday lives. You're either going to be the person that leverages it to make a lot more money or help a lot more people, depending on what industry you're in, or you're going to be the person that buries your head in the sand. Mm-hmm. And the gap is widening daily. Yeah. It's not widening by the month or by the year. Like the gap on AI is widening daily. Yeah. And what is being done with it and what it's doing. I mean, like you said, it getting adoption of it is the biggest thing. Like right now it is pretty complicated. Like you can get it to do some mundane stuff pretty easily, but like to get it to do complex things that actually save a ton of time, that are truly automated, that don't take feedback, is a lot more complicated, but it's not going to be for long.
You bring up a really great point, which I think kind of circles back to what you had just said previously. Oh gosh, where was I at with that? What was the last thing you said? I'm so sorry.
The complicatedness of like setting it up to actually get it to do complex tasks.
And you know what? The interesting thing I find about that is we talk about AI, and what does it stand for? Artificial intelligence.
It's not really intelligent though.
Because, and this is the coolest part of it, is it needs the human intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. If you aren't, as an example, if you aren't aware enough of the pitfalls in your business, you can't run artificial intelligence necessarily to fix it.
Yeah.
Because again, let's just, as an example, it's prompting, right? So if I say, hey, are my books balanced? Yes. Where can I modify my books better? Well, you can save some money here. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
But if I'm not the kind of person, or maybe I'm the kind of person who has the kind of mindset that goes, hey, you know what? I would like you to analyze anything in my budget that you find that's marketing, and anything that's over the amount of $200, I want you to flag it. And then I want it to be quantified into different segments and blah, 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 blah. And if you are if you're able to articulate what you want to do and what you are already doing in your business, it's going to take, like you said, is it difficult to set it up? Kind of, because it takes time. And what I find is you're going to choose one of two things. You're either going to continuously complete the task yourself because it's too long and too hard to set up one time.
Yeah.
So then what happens though is this is where your mind and my mind are is, wait a second, we're not obviously like AI geniuses.
No.
But I think that we have a little bit more of a grasp on, or at least understand what the potential is for it. So then it's people who are like, hey, you know what? Are we the intermediaries? That's where those programs come from, right? Where it's like, hey, you know, I don't know how to use ChatGPT to write an email, but I downloaded this cool app that's called Write My Email, and it'll write my email for me. And it's like, wait a second. So all we did was just package it a different way and deliver it to you. That's all any AI bot, chat bot, anything that you're using, whether it's a lawyer, a real estate agent, you know, a research buddy or assistant, it's just been told what to do and narrowed its focus down.
Yeah, and that's
crazy.
That's the thing that like most people are just not understanding. Like Grok and ChatGPT and Claude and all these different places, it's not the same. Like they are training these things in a different way, but they're all long language models. Right. They're all the same premise at the core level of them. And it's just, hey, this one's packaged this way. This Grok's got a little bit more humor in it. This one's got a little bit more data analytics. This has got this. And that's where I think a lot of people get confused. Yeah. And they get like sidetracked. And that's what I try to get through to people is, well, what do you actually want help for in your business? Like, and that, to your point, means that you got to understand your business a little bit. And I think that that's the piece that's going to cause issues long-term is people aren't going to even know enough about the business or about themselves or about what they need to accomplish. So it's gonna be like, I don't know what, this is complicated because I don't know what to get it to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to help whenever I do classes and whenever I do things on this is like this is a great tool, but people buy it from people. Yeah. So if you lose the person aspect of it, like I would urge you never to touch this because you're going to screw yourself. And if you can utilize this to be better at this, like I tell people all the time, you need to use AI to do all the things that you don't want to do. So you in a conversation can look somebody in the eye and focus on them and make it to where they think, I most everybody I know gives a shit, but make them feel like you truly are invested in what you're talking about with them. And if you have something like what I have on my wrist and
point that out
and some of those things, like this is just now my note taker. Like now I don't have to be vigorously writing while I'm talking to Jay, you know, and it's also a great sales tactic because
I do it all the time.
Because so in coaching, like most real estate and mortgage coaching teaches you to I don't know the word for it, reciprocate or recap what somebody says to you. Yes. So Jay, what I hear is important. The 5 things that I hear are important to you are family, scaling your business, making sure you make an impact, going through the things every day to create value for your customers, and getting to a place to where you have financial freedom. Yep. Is that the 5 things that are important to you? Like, dude, before, like I'm remembering all of that stuff, and on the fly, I'm like trying to keep it in my brain. I'm like, what the hell did Jay and I talk about? I don't even remember. Like, what the hell? This does it all for you. And then when you do that sales tactic of reciprocating, letting them know you're listening, this hears it. And then now you've got it for life. Now, every time I have a conversation with you, I can go back to my little AI assistant and go, I'm having a conversation with Jay today. What are some of the things that I need to remember about our last conversation? And dude, when you hit a client with that, they are just dumbfounded. Hey, how's Johnny's T-ball game? Like, I heard you guys went to you told me you were going to the championship. Did you guys win? And the client's like, what? How did you remember that?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I use, it's the same thing, just different way.
Goes on the back of the phone.
And, you know, one way that I've implemented, again, it's something that, is it AI? Kind of, right? And it's like,
it's old school. We used to have the little...
Exactly. It's like we're recording.
Yeah.
What I tell clients all the time, I say, hey, you know, after our call or after our meeting, you know, don't worry about taking notes. I'll send you a copy of our notes. And it's nothing, we're not being disconnected. It's helping me connect more on a human level because it's, you know, I do care. This is the thing. I think
if you do this to manipulate people and you don't care, then you're a piece of shit.
Yeah. And it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is, you know, the people who say, hey, my mission is this, and I have a mission. Like first, you got to know, right? Like I have a mission. And how do I get there? Well, I can get there through hard work, and I can get there through sacrifice. And I might be able to alleviate some of that hard work and sacrifice by using just a little bit of my own intelligence to expand that exponentially through artificial intelligence. And now it's like, oh, okay, those people are all, again, you have to, not to get into to politics, just generally speaking, I'm a conservative person.
Yeah.
However, I do enjoy risk, and I enjoy the thrill of the future.
Yeah.
And what is that? And guess what? It's coming. So we know the future's coming. It's going to be interesting to see the divide. That's the unfortunate thing too. Like,
the wealth divide's only going to get worse.
right? And the thing, the problem is it's all, I think it does kind of go back to ego, and it's weird. It's going to cycle back. There are people who just won't adopt anything. There are people who won't want to explore it, and that's okay. They're likely not exploring other things in their life anyway, right? So
they're probably not doing much personal development anyway.
Exactly. And I think what we're seeing just generally as a testament to like societal norms and things is we as humans realize like, hey, you know, everything has a mission now. Like hey, I'm selling soap, and every soap you buy, we're going to give away 15 free. And it's like, oh, wow. So I just think that like people are moving towards, hey, how can we help more people, do more stuff, make more money, make everyone happy? And the thought, just thinking that is what's going to separate people. And then the people who are just like, I don't care, I'm just going to sit here, I don't care. Yeah. That gap, like you said, everything's growing exponentially. That gap is going to grow.
There's going to be some billionaires created because of AI.
There's already happened.
I mean, already happened. But like, I mean, like everyday dude that has a good idea and is like, oh, I could build this with Bolt.new and create the site and like solve this problem for this person and sell this software. Like it's crazy.
I tell people for me, I've always been a thinker. In fact, a lot of times I have thoughts, and I'm like, people are probably gonna think I'm crazy if I say these out loud.
Same.
You know, so I get my Chat GPT to hopefully not give me confirmation bias, but you know, I prompt it in such a way where I'm like, hey, like, you know, I'll kick some ideas back and forth with it. Yeah. And you know, I realize, hey, maybe I think a little bit differently than some other people too. And there's a word for that. It's called polymathic thinking. Which is really cool because, long story short, Thomas Jefferson, we were talking about him earlier, Ben Franklin, they were kind of polymath people where it was like, hey, I invent things, but I kind of am a banker, and I'm this and I'm that. Yeah. And it's kind of just exploring your interests and maximizing them to help people and earn an income. So for me, it's kind of interesting. You're saying how like, you know, the everyday person's going to be able to, you know, become a billionaire. It's like, if they just take the effort, right? Exactly. And it's like, you can do it. And for me, what I've done is like, I might have this crazy idea that I'm like, there's no way it's possible, you know, hypothetically, like, oh shoot, you know, it is, you know, can I, if I dug to the center of the earth, you know, like how much diamonds could I, you know, harvest or whatever. And, you know, you go through these numbers and you run things and it's like, wait a second, there actually is a way. It's starting to bridge the gap. I know that's an extreme example, but for me, it bridges the gap in my knowledge between what I think is possible and what is possible being backed up by the information that I just wasn't taught in school. You know?
Yeah. And like, that's a great point. Like the impact this has on the education system, they're fighting to figure that out. Yeah. But I don't think it's going to be good. I don't think it's really for the education system. Like, unless they revamp the way they do things fast, I could, especially higher education, I could see this being a colossal problem for them.
And sorry, go ahead.
Like just in the sense of, why am I going to do 17 electives that I really don't need any baseline knowledge in, because I want to do this one thing and AI can help me with all this other stuff. Like, why do I care about that? Like, I'm going to school to be an engineer. I don't need to take putting class. I don't need to take all these different classes. And I think that colleges in particular are going to have to really, really change the way that they're thinking.
I love that you framed it that way, because I think of it completely different, but not in a contrary way. Yeah. It's, you know, I agree when the masses look at the impact of AI on education, particularly higher education, they look at people and say, well, now you have doctors and lawyers who are, you know, writing BS papers and it's not even them. And totally understand that. I get it. And then there's also, hey, why do I have to take Spanish 1 and 2 when I've already done, I kind of know Spanish. I just want to jump to 3 and I've got AI to help me along the way. Totally get that. And I think that's also putting education, now don't take this the wrong way, taking the way that higher education is in our country today and putting it on a pedestal, where for me, when I think about how does AI impact education, I think about the person like me who, I grew up poor, the oldest of 8 kids. This is going to sound like some and then my Uncle Scrooge, took my cane. No, but I grew up poor, oldest of 8. I always thought I wanted to go to college because I had to go to college. I wanted to be a lawyer and like all this stuff. A, it's not true. And B, you're going to have people who are thinkers, because it's not about what you know. It's about how can you apply the things that you know and the things that are out there. So if, not me, I'm just saying, if I can gather, 10 reports that if I would have never found any other way, but I was able to source and collectively bring and aggregate data together, that I go, wait a second, at this one moment in time, these 5 sources have never been together. Yeah. And they've never been viewed by me or you or this particular person. Yeah. And that is when that idea is born. Yeah. So like that ability to educate people and just train them to think more and have more productivity and more innovation. That's what I see. Yeah.
And I agree. I'm in the same boat of the sense that like when it comes to the information age that I think that we're in, I see education being something that is street level. Like I think like higher education is going to get its ass kicked by this, but I think street smarts and critical thinkers are going to crush.
That's where you're going to see those billionaires that are literally, you're going to see people go from drug dealers to cleaning their acts up and being like
100%. Yeah. And that's like, honestly, that's where I see the primary education, the early years education going back to what we originally intended it to be, which is let's develop a country of free critical thinkers.
That's it.
And that's what this country was founded on, not to get super political, but that's what this country was founded on, was free critical thinkers. And then somehow we socialized ourselves to a point to where you can disagree with me or not, but like the majority of the education system is very socialist based to create factory workers. Like that's what it's essentially built. Like that, it doesn't, like in our current, like at least in the last decade, our current setup with education up to college is test scores and how do I get this kid from point A to point B so I can pass them through my class.
Can't even talk. See, should have went to school. The testing is called standardized testing. Yes. And it's like, why is education standardized? Yeah. And I'll bring it back to your business. Legendary Mortgage, right? Your boutique firm here, and you are the one that's dealing with your clients. You are picking up the phone. The people who work with you are picking up the phone. They're talking to their people, and that is the level of expertise and attention they require. But what happens when you scale that and you need to standardize and mass produce your mortgage system? You lose that touch, right? So now it's like, well, hey, we have, and I don't know how many children that we have in our country's education system. I wish I knew.
Somewhere around 70 million, I think.
So I don't know. However many tens of millions of people that are in our country's education system, it's like, hey, you know what? Let's standardize it. Yeah. And that just robs and violates people of the ability to, it's so funny. People say you can grow up and be anything, and then they never support them in figuring out how to do it.
Well, every time you told me that as a kid, but parent, you're telling me all the time that like, if I don't get straight A's, I'm going to be nothing.
Exactly.
And it's like, wait a second, like that. So I'm actually like, I battle this all the time because I am a parent now. And just recently, Ollie is insanely smart, insanely critical thinker. Like it scares me a little bit. I'm like, this kid is like next level. And I'm not just saying that to dote as a proud parent. Like he will process information and come up with solutions to things at 6 years old that like, I know I could have never done. Yeah. Like, I'm like, no way. But he gets a map test back from school because he's in first grade, and I look at his map test and he's below average on everything. And I'm like, my parents would have gotten upset about this. And I looked at it and I'm like, honestly, like, I don't care, because my day-to-day interaction with, I see him solving problems. I see him working through things. He builds these intricate Legos that are insane at 6 years old that it says it's 18 years old. And I'm like, why would I base my interaction with my son
off what somebody else
off of this map test? You know, like, I don't even know what he was being tested on. Like,
I can't even do that.
I honestly, like, if I was put in front of it, like, maybe I score the same because it's just not, it's not useful, you know?
Exactly.
And I am raising a child where, and right, wrong, or indifferent, if he doesn't feel like it's like something that is going to better him, because we talk about it all the time, I'm like, dude, like, I want you to do the best that you can and get a passing grade, but like, I'm not going to get mad at you about having straight A's. Like, that's not something that you're ever going to get from dad. And he's like, okay. Yeah.
I love that. And it's, I can relate to your son, I guess, in a strange way. When I was in high school, this kind of goes back to the whole, like, you know, oh, I'm sad, I'm poor, blah, 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 you know, but I worked basically full time when I was in high school to help support, you know, my family and everything, while being a volunteer fireman, before being hired as a fireman. Very complicated.
That's awesome.
It was crazy. But what I was getting at is I was always tired. I was always like, you know, hey, you have to go home and do homework and, you know, do this report. And I'm like, what do I care about that? And don't get me wrong. I love literature. I love music. I think I'm well-versed and eclectic, but like at the same time, I'm like, okay, I like this book, Fahrenheit 451. Cool. Do I have to like do X, Y? Like, how does that benefit me? I have to go make money to go support somebody, you know? And that mindset was great. But what's funny is obviously that led to poor grades. I knew the information. I could take a test on something I never even looked at and get it right just because I knew how to take a test. Didn't mean I was smart. The only thing that
the statistics behind C being the answer like 70% of the time.
Yeah, right. Exactly. The crazy thing is, and I used to be ashamed of it, but now looking back and kind of having this conversation, I hope it helps validate with you. The only reason I even graduated high school was because I had the relationships with my teachers where I would sit and we would negotiate. Like this.
Yeah. If I do this, will you pass me?
I had a class where she calls me and she goes, Jay, she's like, you know, you're going to fail my class. And she goes, I've even given you an A on everything you didn't turn in, which was like everything, you know? And she's like, and you're still at, you know, just below a failing grade. And, you know, we went through some conversation, and what she ended up doing was giving everyone a class participation. And look, I'll do what I have to do. A class participation grade and weight it the same as like a final, so that it flipped the numbers to give me a final passing score for that class. And, you know, at the time I was like, you know, like that was kind of cool, you know, funny. Like, and then there was this time where I was like, man, like I should have went to school and done what was right and did the home. And then I was like, no, I did what I had to do to get through it. I'm at where I'm at today because of the way that I critically think and have conversations and relationships with people that are beyond what's on a Scantron. You know?
Yeah, same, dude. Like, I was already playing the game because I knew I wanted to go to college to play football. I was in sports. So like, I got to get some kind of grades to like be able to go to the next level. And all of my friends were going into like international baccalaureate and all of these advanced classes, and they're striving really hard so they get college credits beforehand and all this different stuff. And I was like, give me the dumbest classes, like give me the remedial classes that you can give me. I think I took weightlifting.
How do I get the credits?
Like literally every semester that I was there. And I ended up with a better GPA than a lot of those people because like it was just too hard. Like it was like why would I? When somebody looks at our two transcripts next to each other, most of the time they're going to be looking at GPA, and I'm going to be right there with you, and it's not going to matter. Like, so I had that conversation with myself at like going into ninth grade. I'm like, screw that. Like, if I can get close to a 4.0 and not have to take any hard classes, I'm going to do that. Like, that seems a lot smarter. So like, I agree, man. Like for me, it's tough because like, I do view education as being valuable. And I am a researchaholic. I think you and I resonate with each other because of that. Like, dude, once I learn something or I get interested in something, like, it's a rabbit hole.
Man, I've never been a polymer chemist, but I can tell you about microencapsulated phase-changing materials because it's something I learned about a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's like, dude, like, this is the fact that I've got this at my fingertips. Like, I'm jacked all the time. Like, I'm super excited all the time. And people will ask me, they're like, well, why do you have so much positivity about the future? I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I've got a supercomputer in my pocket. Like,
I've patented ideas that AI has helped me get to.
Yeah.
Because like again, I didn't understand the science behind something, but I knew the concept. And it's just like, hey, is this possible? Yes. And it's like, okay, I know a little bit about covalent bonds. You know, it's like, hey, da, 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 da. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is possible. Let's organize this into a business plan. Oh, we have a business plan. Okay, great. What's the next step? And now, like, literally I have again, it's not anything important, but like, I've never done that before, but now because of AI, I'm able to file a patent on something that I think I invented. It's kind of cool.
It's insane, right?
Like, I never thought to say that.
Like, it's crazy. The crazy stuff that we're able to do with all of this is just wild. And that's for me, like, just the businesses that can come from this. My bread and butter is always going to be mortgage.
Yeah.
Like, I actually love mortgages. They're a puzzle. I like the puzzle aspect of them. For whatever reason, I nerd out on them. My photographic memory remembers guidelines. Like, you can ask anybody in the office. Like,
Section B, 4 or 5
yeah.
paragraph.
Like, they're like, dude, how do you remember that? And I'm like, I honestly don't know. Like, I don't know. Most of the time it's because I've made a mistake on that part of the guideline and now it's seared into my brain. But all the other stuff, like, I have a terrible memory on. Like, you get me, you need me to remember something on my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, like, I'm not going to remember
That
it.
sounds like me.
But like, that's because, like, I'm not super interested in remembering it either.
Right.
So that's the cool part about AI for me, is just utilizing it to be, to your point, a better human being in my day to day by remembering stuff that I do truly care about, because I'm creating this thing to remember it for me, but I otherwise would have never remembered.
I love that you brought that up. It also ties into the fact, and this isn't AI, I remembered this. You were talking about sports, right? And how you were, football was your thing.
Yeah.
So with oh God, where was I going with that? You know what? As soon as I go down a rabbit hole, I totally miss it.
Sports.
Yeah. What was right before that though?
Remembering things with AI. So, like,
that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. What's interesting is you're a sports guy. I've never been a sports person. And I mean, like, I like to go and watch them, I'm semi-athletic, but it's just never been my thing. And I always will make the reference when somebody's like, oh, I don't like sports. And I'm like, well, no, like, I'll watch it and I'll cheer for your team if you want.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I can't tell you that, oh, back in 1985, this guy had a blah, blah, blah ERA. And it's like, how do you remember that? And I always thought to people, like, you know so much about sports and stats. I could never remember that, but you do. And I always thought, like, well, that's a waste
intriguing,
of space,
isn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
But then I was like, well, wait, maybe it's not a waste. Like, that's important for you. But maybe I could also maybe be just as aware of what's going on without wasting my brain space by keeping it in and having it available when I need it. I don't need to know the score, from the 1999 game.
Yeah.
This does. It's crazy.
Yeah. It is pretty wild. And again, like, the problem is there's a good and evil standpoint here. There are going to be people that utilize this to manipulate people, to use it to their advantage for nefarious activities and all that kind of stuff.
Look at the internet.
Yeah. I mean, it's
literally the same.
Yeah, it's the same thing. But, like, I think that the good people will create amazing experiences for a human being through this. And it will overall advance our society as long as we put roadblock or, like, some guardrails on it, which is kind of a whole nother topic about how do you legislate this stuff. But we are in what I consider the new gold rush. This is the gold rush of our century. And I think that if you can get yourself mentally to that place in respects to AI, and just see some of the proof in the pudding type of stuff of, like, that kid created an app that searches Facebook Marketplace for underpriced sneakers and he's a millionaire now. Like that's happened.
Yeah.
Like that's happened in the last 12 months.
The thing is, people
Like-
need to think that way, right? Like,
Yeah.
I've gotten really weird into like, you know, I know not that it's weird, but I know you're into too, like, you know, mindset and, you know, your
Yeah.
faith's important and just kind of like introspection.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if you don't look inside of yourself, if you don't know where you're going, if
Yeah.
you can't think about what's going to happen past the 30th of the month or whatever it is, then there's no way that you're going to be able to touch any of this stuff.
No.
And I guess what I'm getting at is, you know, just kind of like good and evil. There's always going to be good. There's always going to be evil. And, you know, I would rather have the good guys equipped with the same tools that the bad guys have, because no matter what, the good guys are always going to be able to have something better and stronger. Yeah. So, yes, it's scary going into the future, and yet it's one of those things where nothing's really going to change because there's always going to be this good and evil. We're just better equipped now, and I know I'm on the right side.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, for me, I was cracking jokes about this today at this class. I'm very polite to AI.
Yeah.
Because in the off chance this stuff gets sentient or gets crazy, like I want them to be like, Mike's a swell guy. He's always been nice to me.
He's always saying thank you.
And have you seen that trend with people where they'll like ask the AI to roast them or give its feedback about them as a human being? Like I've had to like DM a couple of people and be like, why are you being an asshole to the AI? Like, why is this AI grilling you this bad?
Right.
Are you being rude to it? Like, what are you doing?
And that's interesting because I actually prompt mine to specifically combat confirmation bias. Because I'm afraid, like, if I'm like, hey, is this a bad idea? And then it's like, oh yeah, that's a bad idea, Jay.
Yeah.
You know, like I say, hey, make sure that I get 2 counterpoints based on whatever.
Yeah.
I literally want, and again,
I want to be wrong.
and not everybody wants, can accept, or is willing to be critiqued. And I need to be critiqued if I want to fine tune this. So please critique me. And again, like that's going to make me a better person, right? I'm going to have a better, the ability to build. That's the thing, right? It's not, for me, it's not AI businesses. I think, of course, there's aspects to that, but for me, it's like, hey, I like real estate, and I love what real estate does for me and the people in my sphere, and like it's a catalyst for my ability for change. Yeah. So you know, it's the vehicle that drives my whatever it is that my initiatives are, like, you know, whether it's in the community or my family, whatever it is, that's what real estate does. And now it's like, well, wait a second. Can I maybe take some of that money? And I love investing in real estate. Real estate is the number one investment. But now it's like, wait, also, maybe I could build a little, you know, online shop business that's completely AI generated and run, which that's something I've been dabbling with. Now what I've found is you can run a business and basically a pro forma in seconds. You can create a business and then be like, that didn't work. Like,
yeah, you can break it. You can
that. And I never thought of myself as like a serial entrepreneur. I hate that term. Like, it sounds so weird, but like I get it. An entrepreneur is an entrepreneur. Yeah. But then I look back and I was like, oh my God, like in the past year, I have literally built and destroyed 5 or 6 possible businesses that just didn't cut it. Yeah. But I never would have even gotten that far had I not. Yeah,
you would have wasted tens of thousands of dollars.
Or never did it.
Yeah, or never did it.
Like,
like the crazy thing about that is like I have this grandiose vision of my own. I'm calling it Legendary Hub, which is co-work and a gym connected and so a bunch of different stuff. Because I want professionals to come together and mindfulness, work together, but also understand that they need to take care of their body and understand, have a meeting space there, have a barber shop there, like whole thing. But I started exercising that concept with AI and getting to a place of like, all right, what's the average rent on a barber chair? What's the average rent that a gym owner will pay? What if I decided to have an operator and operate the gym? Exactly. Like, what could I make on a per class basis, and how many people would I need to sell? Mm-hmm. And like that comes from building businesses prior to AI, and being around entrepreneurs my whole life. But like, it is so cool to be able to get to a place to where now once I find the land, I've got something I can put in front of a bank and go, this is going to work.
Absolutely.
And here's the statistics, the 24-month global, everything that you need. This will work. And I've got some seed money of about $2 million. Let's make this happen. You know, and like, dude, like the thought of putting that together 2 years ago, 3 years ago is bananas.
Yeah.
Like insane. Like, and then now I'm custom creating a CRM with AI. Like it's coding it. It's helping me with the APIs, like everything.
It's funny. There are certain things that I'm not talking about because, again, I never thought I would even say this, like, oh, it's proprietary.
Yeah.
But like, there's things that like I'm, like you said, exercising, and it's interesting to like see it work. I mean, I have like fully functional businesses that just haven't like hardcore launched yet.
Yeah.
But that if you go in and you operate as if you're a consumer, it's like, oh wow, this is like really cool and it works.
Yeah.
And you're talking about, you know, well, what is the scalability? What's the average? What are the numbers? You know, it can break it down. I always liked science when I was in school.
Yeah.
So the scientific method is kind of like wired into my brain. So I see a problem, I have a hypothesis, like, I think if I do that, then this will happen. And then I try the control group and the variables, and then I analyze the data. And that's like everything I do. Well, now I can kind of do that already. So it's kind of like, hey, if I wanted to invent a new bottled water, you know, and it's like, well, hey, you know, I know that if I'm doing this, these are the potential pitfalls. These are the things I'm going to need. And, you know, hey, how much is there an issue with too much carbonation that might interact with the plastic? You know, and things that are being analyzed and just handed to you on a platter are accelerating things so quickly.
Yeah. Well, and then you think about like the next level of quantum computing after that jumps out. I mean, it's going to get wild, and they're even using. Most people don't know this, but they are using this for medical research too.
Oh yeah.
And the beauty that could come from this over the next 5 years, outside of real estate and all this kind of stuff, is like, if there's not a cure for cancer now, like the reality is we're going to be able to analyze trillions of data points on cancer research in minutes.
Right. And it was interesting, 1,000%. Cancer is always the one that comes up because it's something that affects a lot of people. And, you know, it's at your heart, and it's like, it's right there. And what's crazy though, is like, you know, cancer, there's never been a cure. And like, there will be. Yeah. Like, again, like you said, it's.
I'll take my tinfoil hat off for a second, because I think there is, but.
No, I think that there is a cure for cancer. I know there's a cure for cancer. And like, I know what you're saying about the.
Yeah.
I know. But let's just say we just haven't found it yet, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Somebody may be this close, but they just haven't talked to that researcher in New Zealand. Or the researcher in Germany just hasn't spoken to the guy in New Guinea, or whatever it is.
Or they're insanely smart and they're only 30 years old and haven't lived enough life to be able to test the theory enough.
Or no one believes them.
Yeah.
So I find this to be interesting, right? Like if you look at people, say like Elon Musk, right?
Yeah.
Aside from the political stuff, which I think is ridiculous that it's even, we have to say that, but, you know, from a business perspective and somebody who's a genius perspective, like he's kind of a weird dude though.
Yeah.
You know?
He's a little strange.
And like, I'm kind of weird.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, he kind of talks like me. I think I talk better than him sometimes. You know, kidding. Obviously I am not. Oh my God, what if he's hearing me? No, my thing is like, I can't do SpaceX. That's not my thing. But my point is, what if he's just the guy who had the thought to do it and then surrounded himself with the people who can do it? Those are the most successful people. And I think that's what we're going to see is a switch.
I personally, like to your point about Elon, like I don't think Elon is the super genius that everybody thinks he is. I think he is exceptional at at critical thinking, but identifying the right people to bring in and get around him to carry out the vision that he casts. So like he has a lot of ideas. He has a lot of things that there's no doubt he's genius, but like, I think that the way his mind works is he casts a lot of vision, and he's been really good at getting the people around him that have been able to execute on said vision.
And what's funny is that's probably the biggest challenge.
Because he doesn't have enough time to do it all on his own. Like,
and you as an entrepreneur and business owner, you know that's the biggest challenge, right? Is finding and always having the right people to implement it.
Yeah.
If you're really good at finding those people, and you're really good at having a vision, then those visions come to fruition
Yeah.
a lot more quickly.
But you also, to your point, which is kind of the reoccurring theme, is you also have to be able to look inward at what you're not good at.
1,000%. One thing I learned through and again, it's not like, oh, I'm conversing with AI and it's, it's psychoanalyzing me. No, guess what? I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. But if I say, hey, imagine that you are a psychiatrist, and based on all of the current data in the American psychiatric blah, 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 how would you diagnose me?
Yeah.
Or whatever,
Yeah.
based on what you know about me. That's an interesting prompt. Go ahead and do that one.
Yeah, it'll freak you out.
And true. What's interesting though is like I've learned things about myself, and like you're talking about introspection, is the concept of metacognition. Are you familiar with this?
No, I mean, I understand the root of the words.
Yes, yeah. Okay. So, and you probably do this. So it's interesting. I didn't realize it was like a whole thing, but metacognition is the thinking of thinking. So like understanding, you have a thought or an emotion or a feeling that you acknowledge is there and that you had it.
Yeah.
And then you pause and think, why did I have that? How is it connected? Should that be the right thought? And what I think allowing AI or ChatGPT to be kind of like a sounding board, again, if it's prepped properly and doesn't have any confirmation bias built into it, it can be that voice of reason, but you have to be in that like metacognitive state where it's like, hey, it's not just my intelligence, it's artificial intelligence too. So now I have to be able to acknowledge that this thing might tell me I'm wrong. Imagine that person who says, I want to lose 300 pounds. How do I do it? And it says, eat healthy and work out. Thing's wrong.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of the same thing. You have to think, is the thing wrong or is your thinking wrong?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and we learn that very quickly as men once we get married.
Oh,
and that's for me, like, imagine back to you're single and you didn't have this other person that is giving you feedback. And once you get into that situation,
we'd be dead otherwise.
Yeah, I would. But once you get into that situation, the first part of that relationship, after the wooing and all that kind of stuff, once you get comfortable, first part of that marriage is the power dynamic and how that's going to work. And then like the comfortability factor of being able to give each other feedback.
Yeah.
And in a marriage, like your marriage will end if you're unable to accept the feedback, because there are a lot of times where it pisses me off what my wife tells me at times, but she ain't wrong.
Yeah, right.
And she is the one person in my life. Like I have work people that I do think care about me and want what's best for our company and for me and my family and those kind of things. But the reality is similar to kind of what you're describing in a relationship, that person just wants what's best for you, and you got to be able to accept that.
Yep.
So whenever you're talking about like AI and you have mentioned a couple of times of like non-biased feedback, like a lot of people don't understand what you mean by that, which is like basically telling that AI assistant that I don't want to be right all the time.
Yeah.
I want you to push back on me and
find the pinholes in it. Yeah.
Find the issues that I'm not thinking about. I even tell my team here a lot, the humans that I work with, is like, if you've got an idea and like there's a lot of times that like I'm going to be wrong. Like you can't be scared to bring that to me and push back on me and like and advance what you think is right. And if we get to a place to where like we will probably find out that we're both right and that we just need to work to a better solution. So it's one of those things where you have to be humble enough to see that though. And in the early part of my career, and I've talked about this on the podcast, like I wasn't. Like I was. That's why I didn't have much success, is because I thought I was somebody and figured out like, well, dude, you're just like everybody else, and you need to lean into the things that like you care about and show people what you care about and stop making it all about you. And it's funny to say that I have a podcast and like, hey, Mike, stop making it about you. But it's really like that's the thing is I want to, with the rest of my life, use these tools. And I think where I see AI helping me is to use the tools to get the message out and ultimately help the demographic that I want to help, which is mainly children. Like that's where a lot of my focus lies. So being able to leverage an AI assistant that I fed all of my podcasts into and all these different things, so it kind of knows who I am and it kind of knows how to write and talk like me. Being able to leverage that to where I can get my message out there at scale is where I get so excited about AIs, because like it just makes it so easy with things like feeding this into Opus Pro and having a bunch of clips and getting it out there, you know?
And as you said exactly kind of what my thought was earlier about how you're taking your ideas and they're becoming, it's the things that you're doing, they're compounding on them, right? So it's like you're feeding the AI, it's learning who you are in a way. It's not because it sounds so scary.
Yeah, it's not becoming you.
No, but like, it's easy because it's like, hey, you know what? Has anyone ever felt like everyone wants something from you at the exact same time and you can't provide it? And it's not because you don't care, or it's just, hey, it's impossible. I can't be in these two places at the same time, or I can't.
And a lot of people will say that saying of like, I wish I could clone myself.
Right.
A lot of times that's coming from ego. But in my case, like I wish I could clone myself so I could help more people. Like I want to help more loan officers and help more people.
It's funny, but people, especially in our business, I mean, if you use a CRM and you're in sales, you're cloning yourself already. You're sending out mass email. You cloned yourself. You send out a mass text. Hey, happy birthday or Merry Christmas or whatever it is. You just cloned yourself. So now it's just how to do it more effectively and more efficiently. And I really think AI will eventually streamline everything. They kind of just be like, there's nothing left. You know, it just happens.
You literally talk to a human. You talk to each other every day. You sell your product, and it does everything after that.
Well, and that's I got sidetracked going back to that whole scalability and personality thing. I think that's what's really cool about us in particular and our businesses. You know, for me, I think I have a certain way of talking to people. You know, and it doesn't matter who you are. You know, I'm always authentic. I'm always genuine, and my automated emails don't come out like that sometimes. You know what I mean? So it's nice to be, hey, what if I did have a virtual, voice assistant that when you called in did have the exact same knowledge I have because I fed it and I told it, hey, you know what? I like this area. You know what? I don't like that restaurant very much. Don't recommend that to people. You know, it's all the same stuff. They're getting the personality experience, they're getting the business, and it's scaled, and you're being able to work more efficiently, increase your dollar per hour. Yeah,
and for me, like my main goal is to get more time with my family. You know, that's the itch I need to start scratching, because I don't get a lot of time with them right now because I'm in kind of a growth mode. But I mean, I think that's where AI can, if you leverage it the proper way, you could find yourself being able to do the things that you really want to do, which is spend time with your loved ones. We have a finite amount of time on this earth. And I personally hope, and I don't think it will become sentient. So I don't think that there's ever going to be a time where like I'm going to be able to upload myself to something, which I wouldn't do that anyway.
I think you can though with Neuralink.
You might be able to. But like, I don't want to live forever. Like that sounds terrible to me. Just being stuck in oblivion in a computer program. Would it even
be you, or would it be just a copy of you? You know, that's the other thing too.
Yeah. So that's for me. Like long-term vision is just making sure that I'm taking these tools and providing value to the marketplace and getting to spend time with people like you. And then just like ultimately changing some lives in the process is really where my head's at with it. And I know we talked about the foundation and those kind of things that I'm going to start to fight for trafficked and at-risk kids. Like that's my jam, like going into the latter part of my life. I hope whenever I get out of mortgages, I can do that full time, and then just ultimately like keep pushing that down the path. But dude, this was awesome.
It was really off the cuff. I liked riffing, and something just to tie in kind of what you said there. I think what's really cool is, and I might get a little deep here, I'm sure there's people who have, different beliefs, whether you're, you believe that there's a higher being, God, you're agnostic, atheist, whatever you are, right? It's like there is an end. We're going to die, And it's like, okay, well, what can we do while we're here?
Right.
No matter what, right? No matter what, I'm sure most people would agree that you want to make an impact. If you know, you're any good person, you want to make an impact. And for me, you know, I always viewed it as like, hey, if death is the end, I want to have lived so much, so hard that I impacted so many lives while I was here that ripple effect is felt, and that legacy. And it's not about me. It's like, hey, if I'm dead and that's
pay it forward.
Yeah, like I want a piece of me to resonate through people because I made a difference. And what I think AI really is going to be for the people who use it for the right way is going to be a huge legacy maker, because they're going to be creating companies, they're going to be creating content, they're going to be creating movies and scripts. And again, I know people are on that, but doing it the right way, there's going to be such a renaissance around AI, and it's just going to be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it is going to be crazy. It already is crazy, and again, like if you can take anything from this, if you've watched this podcast, like before you start leveraging AI, like you need to do an inward look in yourself to figure out what you need help with. Yeah. That way, if you do err on the side of being a little bit more greedy, I would urge you not to get an AI prior to, so you don't end up creating something that will end up negatively impacting society. Like that's not what this is all for. And I would hope that if you have a disposition to be that way, you figure that out before you start creating things that are going to manipulate people, which is where I see a lot of issue with AI. But ultimately, like you said, good will always prevail. I hope they have off switches and kill switches on the AI robots, because like if they don't, and we have to fight robots at some point, I feel like we're not learning anything from movies right now. But that'll be no fun. But ultimately, I see a lot of good, and I see a lot of great things that can come from this, and it's going to be a journey. I mean, you've had your journeys. I mean. You are, I presume, still clean from alcohol?
Oh yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I did want to touch on that real quick. I mean, that's a feat in our society right now.
And I appreciate it. I think it's super trendy. Not that I did it to be trendy, but like I'm super supportive of right now. Like again, I just stopped because I chose to stop, and then the positive things happened. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to plan to do this. It was.
Yeah.
Stopped drinking, clarity, lost weight, got healthy, all that awesome stuff. And what's cool is like there's so many people out there that are kind of like doing the same thing, or like I don't really want to go out to the bar. Is there a sober bar? And like I'm not like one of them super overly weird, like, oh my God, like, do what you want to do. I just stopped because I didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. But and I think that's what's like, I said that because like I became very cynical of society. For a little bit. Yeah. And I was like, oh, we are going way down the tubes right now. But I've been seeing like over the last couple of years, just some like really cool rebirth of society, of like just take all the weird stuff out of the stuff, but like just a genuine like care for each other.
Yeah.
And I hope that continues to blossom, and hopefully the podcast will be a part of that. But like, I would love to see us keep going down a path as a population that like, dude, I don't care if you want to do this, or if you're gay or you're straight or you're what, like, I don't care about any of that. Yeah. Like, who are you? Like, how can I help you? Like, how, like all of that other stuff is buzzwords. Ultimately at the human level, if we can just continue to move down a path where it's like, I want you to live the best life that you can. I want you to live the best life that you can. You guys are completely different, but we can all still be friends. Yeah.
Well, and the cool thing, right? I mean, if we do it the right way, artificial intelligence is supposed to take out all the bias and the prejudice and everything else.
That's not happening. We both know that.
No, yeah, it's supposed to.
The long language models are definitely biased on some of them, but yeah. But yeah, dude, like I agree, man. I am a believer, so like there are some things that I might not agree with what you're doing.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like I'm also not the person that can judge, because I've done a lot of bad stuff.
Right.
And if that's your vice, that's your vice. Like that. If that's something that you do and it doesn't align with my beliefs, it doesn't mean I have to treat you
Exactly.
like an ass. Like I'm not going to be a butthole to you. Like like you do you, boo boo. Like I don't care, and I will still find a way to find common ground with you and show you that I do care about you. And I think that that's the piece that is blossoming right now.
Yeah.
I think we've been manipulated a lot by mainstream media. And,
oh man, how much time do we have left on this?
Yeah. So yeah, like we'll close it out. We'll talk about that on the next one. But like I do think that in this age of podcasting and mainstream media and the information age that we're in, I think it has created that spark point where the blossoming of, dude, you're like, this person's making me think that you're the enemy. You're not the enemy. Like, I don't have a problem with you.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a problem with you. Well, why are they saying that you have a problem with me?
Well, I think that you're talking about the main, not even mainstream versus podcast, but like what's interesting is I think we're at a point, and it shows up in AI, where it's like, wait a second, we're kind of going back to individual thought processes.
Mm-hmm.
We are going back to individual critical thinking. And that's why it's like, well, hey, wait a second, instead of having, 8 reporters here, let's have 16. Well, who are the other 8? It doesn't matter, and kind of the same thing where it's here. It's like, hey, let's try this. Let's create content and throw it out there and see what happens, because somebody could hear this and it changes something they think, and they do something different, and they have the tools and the resources to leverage to get there. Like, I think we're in like I said, a renaissance, the second industrial revolution, and it's going to be
it's gonna be a fun ride.
And it's a compound effect that we're going to have over the next, I don't even know how long, but the future's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Dude, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being open. And I definitely want to have you back, because I think we could probably create a sub podcast that just talk for hours and hours.
I know. I don't even know what I was supposed to do. I just showed up
today. But I do know Jay is one of those people that does care about people. He wants to be helpful. So if you need anything real estate, or if you like need somebody to listen to you and help you through things, he's cut from the same cloth in that. Like, call him, call me. I will put in the episode description and social media handles, those kind of things. Reach out, give us feedback on what you think of the episode. Shoot us a DM, do something. Tell us if it changed something in your life. And we appreciate you guys listening. And don't forget, if you got something from this episode, share it, send it to somebody. And ultimately that's, I think you've probably heard of Andy Frisella. That is my fee. I'm not going to charge you for anything, but my fee is share this with somebody that you think will get something out of it. And we would love to be the catalyst to change something in there.
Or even make fun of me and laugh at me. That's fine too, because as long as you're sharing it.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.